during like for the next conscious jam, because then the second step of the conscious jams is like about the global village, so like really about this global community, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, which country would be good for like this global community, like which country really represents that right now? And I was thinking it's like Costa Rica, yeah, but not really, it's like more retreat. Then I was thinking other countries like Portugal. I mean, it's
Yeah,
really really nicely international right now.
it is, and we were worked intuitively here, and we just took a round looking from the intuitive level and looked at the different countries in Europe. It was very interesting, and then Portugal come up as a gem. It was a pearl. That was the term I received. So
Really?
something with with Portugal, with the climate, the culture, the people. It is really a gem. It's a pearl in Europe. So yes, I think Portugal would be a very good place, for a community like this.
And
Uh,
actually, what I was remembering that my very first glimpse of a possible community, and that happened actually because a friend of mine is right now in Portugal. Uh, he reminded me of these beautiful castles, like on the coastline, that are
yeah,
just like they're just so wonderful. And I was like, these are so beautiful, and most of them once in a while they have like these long family problems of ownership and like all these things. And that was my very first glimpse of a community like 2.5 years ago. So I was like,
yeah.
oh my god, it would be so wonderful to have a place like that with like
Mm.
really nice people and live all together. And then I just let go of the thought, like, and completely I was not remembering at all. And then it came like almost like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, oh wow, Portugal was really the very first time that I thought about that.
Yeah, yeah. But, my friend here. I have a friend living in the neighbor city, and he really wants to invest in a place here in Portugal because he loves staying here. I have to admit that even if I love Portugal, I see the opportunities. Okay, my heart is in Italy still because of the Renaissance connection and well, there are other things, of course, as well. Because I knew since I was in my mid 20s that sometime I would go to Italy and create something there.
But
So
why Italy? How did the connection with Italy came?
how?
How did the connection with Italy came to you?
Yeah, I have been working, with this Renaissance concept for many many years. So as I say, when I knew already, as I say, in my mid 20s, that someday I would operate from a center in Italy. So somehow my soul is Italian. I'm sure. It's like I have another life in Italy. Um, and then I started to study the Renaissance and uh, this big shift. What is happening now. I have been waiting for that for 50 years. You know,
Mm,
because
yeah.
I did understand that if we really were to experience a global shift, a global renaissance, then it had to be global. The new renaissance is global. But then we also need this global wake-up call. So
Yes.
it started there, and then
Yes.
then I realized that okay, how then to create the center for the global renaissance in Italy? And it's natural, and it's also it reminds us then of the connection from the first renaissance to the next global renaissance. So it was a point in itself. So yes, first of all, I love Italy, but somehow I knew intuitively that yes, that would be the starting point. But I have always seen through these years that
Mm.
we would have a chain of interconnected communities, as you talk about. We will establish small living ecosystems, communities, many places.
Yeah, I mean, we cannot really expect that we can live separately anymore, right? Like
No.
it's really an illusion. And why should we anyhow? Like our strength is coming from connection in the human species, not from separation. Like separate, we cannot do much. I mean, we're not a very strong animal actually separately, but all
No.
together,
Yes,
we
exactly.
have an amazing like power.
Yeah, true. At the same time, what I realized also that if you really want to reach the critical mass, the critical mass in order to gain and to achieve the shift, and the necessary changes, then we also need to gather the right resources, the right people, because we need somehow to be on the same frequency. It's not just to gather people together and say, okay, let's start out a new community, because the shift is also about a shift in consciousness. So
Right.
then we need to gather people, yes, on that level, understanding each other. And yeah, me too, I saw exactly the same as how to live together with this new consciousness, with this new way of doing business, or living together. Everything is changing, I'm sure. Everything is changing.
And I mean, we really have to redefine also what does it mean to have a meaningful life. It's not like I think we forgot that. That's the thing. Like, we really have to go back and see what is important. And the funny part, today I was talking with my best friend, and he was working in jewelry business. His business is completely zeroed, like it's like gone, and it will be gone for probably for 1 or 2 years,
Yeah.
right? And we were talking, and we were saying that like so many businesses will completely go out of business because practically we didn't ever really needed what they were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And I think, this is, as I say, the golden moment for rethinking what is business, what is life, what is work, how do we organize life and business, and that is behind also global and society. This is what I want to create. As you say, I think a lot of business, because now so far we have talked about all the jobs that we will lose because of the automation, robotication, and so on. But now we are talking about even businesses in itself.
Yep.
That's the next step, that we do understand that products and services, we don't need them. On the contrary, they destroy the inner climate. It increases the stress, the inner stress. At the same time, it destroys the nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you say,
This will like really bring a very interesting shift of, I mean, many things, like literally people that used to have a very good and stable income, they will just from one day to another go to no income at all and not possibility of income. It's like it's a very interesting shift. But again, the funny part is that for me, I have realized that it really makes us start understanding that our real security is not even money. Like if the supply chains break, it doesn't matter how much money you have, your food is not arriving where you are. Point. Like you just have to find food around you.
yeah, I think this is a very important question, as well, because we all need some basic needs fulfilled, for sure. And it's not right, it's not fair that people have to strive mostly for surviving, because it covers up what we really want to do and what we have to do in order both to thrive and to survive. Now we are stressing and struggling with jobs and work and relationships that they are not sufficient, they are not purposeful, they're not meaningful. So yes, we have to start from scratch. And I think that is what most people don't understand. We can't go back to the normal. We can't. We have to set a new standard.
There's the old normal doesn't exist anymore.
No. But at the same time, I'm afraid that many people will, return to the old because they don't see any alternatives. And that's why I think that the communities you are talking about, how to create these communities, how to establish them on a practical level.
I mean, that's why we're starting conscious jams like in this period. Like so many people were telling me, like, are you crazy? Are you really starting a community in the middle of Corona? And I'm like, of course,
Yeah,
because right now we need to set the new paradigm. By September, it will be too late. By September, we are back to normal. Like
yeah,
we have nothing to prototype in September. It's too late. And yeah, of course, many other things will arise there, right? But we have to be able to start imagining this new reality, and we only can imagine by experiencing something different.
yeah. You mentioned imagination, and well, we're working a lot with that. You see, the rational mind has failed. And in order to create a new world, a new reality, we have to use our creative imagination. That is the only way. We have to play. We have to start to play again, to play with each other, to play with opportunities, to play with future scenarios, to play with new institutions, new ways of global collaboration whatsoever. We have to explore, we have to dream. And I think this is the new, and people need help to see that they can dream again. They are allowed to do that. But then they also need to understand that we need to reclaim our own freedom and authority, because now we have left it to the authorities, to external authorities, to something that is not coming from our inside being.
The other thing that was like very inspiring to realize once again, like the other day I was talking with Philip, who's actually living in a conscious community in Stockholm. And I was asking him, like, how did you dealt with the whole situation of Corona? I mean, it's still people contacting other people and coming into one big
Mm.
building that we all live together, right?
Mm.
And he was like, Aliki, I mean, we are 50 people, and normally, like, obviously, in these 50 people, we had doctors with us, we had nurses with us, we had people that were working like in the hygiene. So we just self-organized all the strategies that needs to be taken care inside the space, so we are safe. We didn't need
Yes.
to ask for anybody because we had already all the resources. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, of course. We have forgotten that. We have forgotten that all together we have abundance.
Yeah,
Separately we have
that's
lack.
good. Yeah, exactly. So, a part of the pandemic has been also the fear. The
Yeah.
fear has spread more destruction than the virus in itself. And there are other diseases that they are more dangerous. So what I say now, is that we are happy. We should be happy. Sorry, but we should be happy that the coronavirus is affecting everyone in this world, on this planet. Because if it had hit and affected only, African or Asian country, we hadn't cared. Sorry, because now we feel it in our own bodies, and we have to cope with our own fear as well. So this interface, so to say, between the fear, to cope with the fear in itself and not be overwhelmed by it. And then on the other side, take the necessary precautions. And we haven't been able to do that. So the pandemic has shown us as well that the breaches in our institutional society as well, you see the authorities have reacted with panic, or they deny even,
Yeah.
that the virus is in their country. No. They're so used to being in control that they even try to deny it,
But in the end, it's like just an interesting process. You know what I was realizing also, like, due to this whole shift, there are so many people who are coming into clarity. So this last week, actually, there was a very interesting process that happened internally in Conscious Jams,
Yeah.
because of all the patterns came up, and actually it was patterns of ownership that trigger specific characteristics of the human species, right? So ownership is one of the very hardwired qualities of ego, ego triggering. And these things came up, and this created the whole shift in the project, in the end for the best. But it also created this phase of clearing and allowed everybody who was coming to actually be really clear if they are in or out. So in the course of 3 or 4 days, I was getting like constant messages without even messaging anybody. And they were like, I'm ready to be, I'm like fully in, or I'm know where they should be. And that's amazing. Like people never had clarity. They were just going for whatever exists or whatever is in front of them, right? They were not looking inside to resonate and then act. And now it's happening. And that's like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, maybe that is the big shift, what you describe now, because it's like that we react instinctively out of fear. That is the instinct, that is the reptile brain. But what we are called to do is, of course, to react consciously.
Yeah.
And if the pandemic can teach us how to react consciously and to inquire, why did this happen? Why do we experience this? For me, it's like nature itself. It's rising and is telling us that, okay, something is wrong in the state of Denmark, something is wrong in the state of them, or rotten in the state of Denmark. And because that is the first step, that is to understand that something is wrong. If you don't understand or consciously take to heart that it is something wrong, then how can we change?
Yeah, no, you cannot, of course. The whole situation is like, it may be the first time in humanity that you cannot predict. Nobody really knows what will happen. Like, really, we really don't know. And that, for me, it's like the perfect recipe for intuition, because you cannot base yourself to anything else. Guidance, like you really don't know what's gonna happen, right? So it's like you really start hearing yourself practically, because it's the only answer you can ever get. There's nobody else who knows, which is, it's unique of this time, actually. It's really, really unique.
Yeah, I follow you on that. At the same time, when people say that we can't predict the future, I say, well, who is creating the future? There are people all over the world, the institutions, governments, they are creating the future. So when we say that we can't predict the future, we give away our own authority, inner authority, to create our own future. So this is a double-edged sword. First of all, we need to understand that, yes, we need to be in the flow. That is, this shift from the linear thinking to the spatial thinking, and that we are now going more into this ever-changing space. It's not that we can predict things from A to B to C, but at the same time, when we use our creative imagination, we can decide, okay, what kind of future do we really want, and then we can start to prepare for that. We don't leave it to leaders or existing institutions. We take up, the glove, and then we said, okay, I want to control, that was not maybe the right word, but I want to have the impact on my own reality here and now. So when people said, yeah, you have to live in a moment, I said, okay, but what about the quality of that moment? Because if you live in a hell in that moment, I said, okay, it's not what you really want. So to live in the moment is to create the quality you want in that moment.
And the more you create this quality, the more you thinking about the future or the past, is because your present is actually shitty. Like literally, you just don't want to be here. You're like the there or there, By the time this becomes kind of awesome, you actually don't really want to be anywhere else, like you really want to be here.
Yeah. Yes. So what I see now, and what I like with your concept, is that we are challenged, every one of us, to shift not just the consciousness, because I think that many people already have shifted their consciousness, but they haven't had the opportunity, or they haven't understood that they could create their own opportunity for practical change. You know, it's like a game that we have, we know already that we have a competence on an extremely high level, you know, technology, on the academia, you know, in industry, business, we have so much insight. So if we just put it into the right practical physical context, then everything will change spontaneously, instantly even, you know, but we don't. And that has been my question. Why the heck don't we change our practices, you know, our behavior, consumer behavior, way of living, when we already know?
We were got into being too busy to change anything. We were too fast to change anything. You know, like we were just in a running course that you don't really all your future booked, and there's no space actually to change anything, you know, because you're just overbooked, and you just continue being overbooked for the whole life practically. And creating space and time is like actually the only recipe to create innovation and really have genuine ideas coming into you. There's no other way.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And you
But
know,
I really don't see the time to be there and actually experience and showcase to other people that might have not experienced it yet how much magic you can create with the right conditions and the right people. It's like just exponential.
yes, it is. Yeah. And I think what you mentioned now is again about the stress. Okay, I lost you.
Thank you.
And here, you know, as I say, you can't fill up a bottle that is already full. And that is how external environments and events, they are controlling us, because we are constantly filled up with something else. So if we need to change the bottle, to shift the water and the content in the bottle, it's always coming in the new or the same.
Yeah.
We haven't time, as I say, to clean the bottle, to shift the water, the content. So the stress in itself is a part of what we have to go into and change. We have to make up our minds. I don't want this rat race any longer. I want out of this rat race. And that is a conscious choice. You can't just say, oh, I want to get out of this rat race and then go back again to the same stressful job. You can't.
No, you need to create a rupture, and that's the thing. Like Corona time has been a rupture in our normal consciousness, in our normal like timeline. Like even, I mean, I don't think that there is any business that hasn't changed. Corona, they had way too much overload because they had to overproduce for, I mean, medical equipment, for example, or they had really no business. So like all of them actually changed. So every single person somehow has been affected. Even if you don't have the virus, you did have to stay at home. You have to change your working environment. You did have to change the way you're communicating. So like our whole lives have been disrupted practically. And then in disruption, it's a choice. How do you disrupt? To the better, to the worse, to the same? So like there is a time of this window of opportunity, right? Of changing something. And of course, many people will go. What I'm saying is that you know the process, right? Like during an awakening, you get from here to here. And then in this phase, when you get here, you still try to do the same things you were doing here, but they don't really apply. So you still go out and get drunk and like try to do the same things, but just no. And then you start searching.
But you know, it's you know, different forms of revolution. And a revolution can sometimes just be a crisis, you know. The crisis is very often the starting point for transformation. But very often it can be that the revolution itself is the thinking, you know. I am a radical thinker, you know, and then you think it's okay. Because yes, but I am the right side. I'm really a futurist. I think ahead, and I have the right thinking and thoughts. And they said, no, sorry, Mac, it's not to wake up. It's just the first step. The next step is the transformation. Am I willing to go through the transformation? And the third step is then the evolution. But we will not be a part of the evolution before we have woken up to this new reality. And then we start to change our practices. And then we are on the same side as evolution, so to say, but not before we are willing to make the transformative shifts that is necessary.
Exactly. But I also feel like always that I don't know if this is like my path or if this is the way I function, but I feel that doesn't matter how many changes you make in your mind and your energetic field, if they don't reflect in your real life, they haven't really become experienced. So they haven't really grounded inside of you. They haven't settled. So if you see a person being super spiritual, but being still in a job that they hate, they haven't gotten there. Like, let's just stop kidding, like if you haven't made the changes in your life, you still have steps to do.
Yeah. And that's why I think, if we go back again to the communities, the community building, this is the space we need to create, because now life and work will be more and more interwoven with each other. So we need to take care of each other, also from this personal perspective. It's not enough any longer just to produce something. We need to have meaning and the purpose for it. But in order to do so, we need to know that every member of that organization or community is dedicated and committed to their unique purpose. If we again create communities with a top control, then we are back again to creating new cults, and that is not the answer. That is not the answer.
That's the old model. I mean, we don't need more gurus.
No.
I think this model has it helped for the period of time, right? Like, don't take.
Yeah.
You really need it. Like, but I think that right now everybody has to be actually their own guru, and then you have guides for specific periods of time, of course, because you need to learn from the people, right? But it's a different. Exactly, we're going from the pyramid to the circle. That's the thing, and we still don't know how to function in circle. Like, I see it over and over again. Like, even with extremely conscious people, minds all get into the mentality that you have to follow somebody else telling you something. It's the process of really activating a person to be self-responsible and actually really take initiative. It's so slow. I was impressed, to tell you the truth. I was believing that by the time you find an interesting, impressive, entrepreneurial individual, automatically you don't even need to guide them. They just know what they're doing. No, it's also a process.
Yeah, again, as I say, that's why we need these new small communities, because we need to experiment as well. In the traditional spiritual context and environments, you usually have the same hierarchy. There is a guru or a priest or whatsoever on the top. So it's the same structure. And what we talk about now is a new way of looking at leadership, guidance, how we relate to each other, how we collaborate, how we co-create. And this is more about an ecosystem. How do we create a self-organizing ecosystem? But if you don't know the principles of the ecosystem, then you will act from the older paradigm. And then we can't create the kind of communities we really want to do. So again, we really need to be very, very conscious about how we gather also the resources here. Otherwise, it will just be a new activity. And it's not activity we need. We need to just say, organize life itself. It's like we give the life itself the right environment and context to unfold.
And we also need to understand that there are, as in nature, there are phases of death and reconstruction and restructuring in a community also, and they're needed. Like, you cannot imagine that the same people that will start will end up being there. A community doesn't work like that. Like, it has to become organic, really organic, the way that is structured.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I see that ecosystems are they are the future of both
Yeah.
life and business. Community building, new business models, societal innovation. It will all be directed towards creating ecosystems. But so far, most people, they are not living in an ecosystem. It works on maybe on a lower level. But as you say now, we need to create an ecosystem that we really do understand, that everything is interconnected and interrelated. So my personal development, my relationships, we can't, diverge and to sort out the leisure time with the work time any longer. We need to more to say, okay, what is my passion? What is my purpose? And then, so what? I have just organized my passion and purpose in pieces of what is healthy and sound according to the context. And that is a totally new perspective of what it is. Now we just accept that we have to go to work, why?
Exactly. No, and the other thing is like I'm really not accepting the model of needing to do compromises. I feel that you really don't need to compromise. You just have, it's like win-win-win. So win-win for everybody. And there you have actually a model that is really making sense. Yeah. If one of the two has to just accept because they don't have any other choice, by the time the other choice appears, they're out of there. I mean, of course, right? Like who wouldn't do it? So they're not really very sustainable. They're not long-term. They're just like fast growth and fast profit. Yeah, okay. But then what? Like then you really live with the stress of needing to maintain this thing because it's not natural.
No, and it's even more serious than that. Because this unicorn philosophy, the unicorns, if you know the term, growing as fast as possible, and then all the investors, they are coming in. Wow, here we have a unicorn or a potential unicorn, and they invest a lot of billions of dollars into it. Is it what? Because it's not organic, and what happens very often is that they rotten from the inside out. They're rotten within. And they, at the best, they are outworn or they are outburned, because it's not natural. It's not natural. It's not natural on a physical level, in physics. And it's not natural at all when it comes to human conditions and terms. So I think that this fast growing, it's totally against nature in itself. And, of course, it depends on the context. Of course, a rose or a flower that is seasoning in its right season can grow fast, but it's still organic. And then you have a big oak, will take, of course, a lot longer time to grow. So we need to know, okay, in what phase am I now? Am I in the fast-growing phase, still organic, or will this take more time? And when we put those principles, the organic principles in, then we will see, okay, where to put our resources, where now to support the fast-growing. It's like children, they take everything in. But then when you try to be specialized in something, you can't just put in a lot of knowledge before you really have integrated it as wisdom. And wisdom, we need more wisdom than knowledge now these days.
And I mean, not only that, I mean, you need to grow, but inside the growing phase, you need to flourish, you need to go into recession, you need to go into, like, you have the phases inside the growing. It's not just like linear growing like that. Nothing happens like that. It doesn't work like that. And I mean, and in general, like I was thinking, what kind of an economy system we have made that in 2 months of inactivity dies? It's like, seriously? Nothing like on this planet, if you leave it 2 months unattended, it really like gets so out of order. They find their way of readjusting, and so it's like so unnatural. And in the end, why do we need to keep growing our economical system so much?
Well, that's interesting because the more people after the pandemic, especially after the pandemic, more and more people now keep on talking about the universal basic income. And if you really, wanted to look into it, of course, economy should be, it should be, as I say, fair distribution of resources. And it doesn't mean communism or some political model. It's just nature. Nature provides and nourishes what's needed. And I think that is the principle we need to follow, because we are really into creating a new economic system. I'm sure, even if it's slowly growing. More and more people are discussing this. So if we are not dependent on money in itself, because money is the driving force on our planet so far. So when we get rid of the whole money or money at the core of economy, then everything will change, because we start to say, okay, I don't need more money than to keep up with or to support my passion and purpose, because that is the purpose. Of course, some people, they are here in order to earn a lot of money because they also have a big position and role in order to create those resources, but not in order to hive up for themselves. But is because they are, they are very clever at organizing and to earn money, but then they also should distribute their money. That is not happening today. Now it's hiving up.
That's the thing, about money. The problem is not making money. The problem is storing money, because by the time you store a huge amount of money, by the time you store a huge amount of energy, you're taking from other people that needed it at that point. And the things, because we were really thinking about that, during the Davos project, why we have created this extremely stressful condition around money. Why are we so attached to money? Why we really want? And I feel that this is coming actually from the insecurity that when we need it, we will not have it. If we were sure that by anytime you need money, they will just flow to you. You need 5,000, you have 5,000. You need 5 million, you have 5 million coming in. You will never store, because, why storing, right? Mm. But if you don't have that, and you really have to struggle for 10, 15, 20 years to get this money, then you're like, I will better save, so that next time I need it, I will use it. But this is actually creating a disconnection from the current state and from your current needs and projection to the future. And the future in the end is an illusion. We don't really know what's going to happen.
This is of course a concern we need to put into this community building. And that is, how do we look at the economy? How do we look at money? How do we distribute money in order to fulfill each one's purpose? And that is the only thing that should be guiding the resources. If you have a big calling or vocation, okay, then you need maybe, 100 times more resources than I need, and vice versa. So it's not just about that, but it's again this natural flow. It's like an irrigation system. It's not controlled by someone either. It's like self-organizing from within. So what we need, and as I say again, it's not communism, it's nature. We need to learn from nature.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thing. Right now, due to this whole process, the last week was it really fired me up to break out of the traditional models and really start seeing the model we want to create in the small economic system that we are building, inside, first of all, prototyping, and then spreading it, of course, right?
Yes.
And we really to create something that also looks at 4 types of capital. So it's not only money that we need. We need also, we need intellectual, we need wisdom, we need people who know things, right? If you don't know, you have a bunch of money, you don't know how to do things. What are you going to do? Nothing, right? You don't really do anything. You take somebody who knows, right? Then you hire somebody. Yeah. So you need knowledge, and then you need guidance. So you need to heal parts to really be able to create.
Yeah.
And you need people.
Yeah, that is what we I think we are heading towards, and said Peter Diamandis said, that if we have people, competence, technology, and financial capital, we can do whatsoever we want. And I agree. It's like that. I also work with Leif Edvins on with his intellectual capital. We talk, discuss about knowledge ecosystem. So in an ecosystem, yes, that is true. We need different sources or different kinds of resources. We need money, but as long as we focus only on money, we don't understand the interconnection between the natural flow of knowledge inside. And I read an article now on LinkedIn, and we talk about this this quadruple helix. It's just about the academia, industry, governance, and society. If we really want to create something new, we need to see the interconnectivity and the interdependence. But now they are separate institutions. We have created a society of specialists and experts, but then they don't have the capacity to share in a way that takes care of the potential that lies in the total of competence, of technology, capital, and so on. We need to create an ecosystem again when these levels are collaborating. Of course, that is a challenge, but as I mean too, as you, that if we create those small communities as role models, that's what I want to create also in GRS. To create small business communities. And for me, it's important to say that they are purpose-driven business communities, because I'm sure that how we exchange values are at the core of community building. So we need to know how to share all kinds of resources, but then the macro in the micro. So we create small communities, self-organizing communities, and we start to explore. We have to admit that we don't have all the answers. But when we start on the practical level, we create small physical. We work together, we live together, we explore together, and we serve the society as role models.
That's exactly the point. I mean, what are you gonna do in the summer? You have to join us, like really. What are your plans for the next month?
Well, I feel that I'm still in the creation. It's like the script writer. I'm the architect, so I'm still in that phase. But I have gathered a lot of people now, very high academic competence, because I realize that we need to have that kind of knowledge, as you mentioned too. And then to create the infrastructure with the different units collaborating, from education, personal development, to how do we run business, the economic model, and put all this together. And of course, it is then to, when the time is right and we have created the infrastructure, it is to get to the right visionary investors, because we can't have investors now that are in the old paradigm, thinking about the profit as the first. We need now visionary capitalists who really understand that, okay, now it's time to invest in the future. And
there are a lot, actually. It was quite impressive to realize that, like, these spiritual philanthropists, as they're called, they just have realized that, I mean, there is that much as you can do with money, but you can use your money to really activate projects that can make changes.
Absolutely. And what some of them maybe need to understand, that they are not entrepreneurs in this development. They're not. They have the capital. Yeah. And so they need to listen, because now it is like we entrepreneurs, we go to the investors and say, okay, please give me some money. It's like we are the beggars, we are the slaves, and they are the masters. I said, no. The money is just the basic. It's nothing more than that. The ideas, how we collaborate, how we create those communities, that is the real value in this shift.
But for me, this comes actually from our inability to measure anything else. We have made the money so important because it's the only thing that we can measure. So everything we evaluate it according to what we can measure, right? But it's not like that. There are so many things, we just don't measure them. But
Mm-hmm.
we all know how important it is actually to make a connection with somebody. Like, but it doesn't really go like that. You know the value, you just don't measure it. So you cannot put it in a financial plan. But by the time you can put in a financial plan, I really feel that this will start shifting, because then you really prove that also the investors are also getting different types of benefits by being involved in such a process. It's not only chipping in your money, that's the thing. And I feel that also it's always the same. I mean, it's very interesting because money creates a kind of addiction for money, but usually people who have money, they don't really need more money. They need all the other resources. And the beautiful thing would be actually the projects that are supporting with money to be able to give them back some of the other resources that they're missing. Because there it's really a win-win, If you have so much money and people just give you more money, it doesn't really change anything in your life.
This is a very old principle. I saw a video by I think she was awarded in India the name of the year at LinkedIn, something like that. A wonderful woman, and she said, "We are not here to get, we're here to let." So she introduced, in GRS, I also introduced the same, the tithing, that we give 10% all the time, because the recycling of money, the recycling of resources, the distribution of resources. And we know that to give is to get. So we need to understand again and to learn again. So, that when I give, then I will receive. And sometimes it's not on the same level, because we have made money as the most important. When I give money, I expect to have money back again in return. And that is nonsense. Because when I give what I have, I can give my time, I can give my resources, I can give hospitality, I can give a hug, I can give friendly word. There are so, a friendly word and change a human person's life.
Totally.
Absolutely. We need to understand, what do we really talk about here? What are the values? What are the principles we want to build into our future communities?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that, I mean, the model that you had interaction with. But the interesting part is, like, your rewards will be from the seed that you planted to other people. So not from what you got, but from what you gave.
Exactly. True.
Because really to understand that contribution is why we're in this world. It's not to take things out. It's to really be part of things. And I think by the time we understand that, like, so many things will just shift. Just like that. Like, if we get that, it's one small thing changes everything.
But then again, I get back again to what does it take to make those changes? I think that is exactly to create small role models. Small, flexible units, autonomous units and groups, communities. So we can start to try this out, because we need to experiment, we need to explore, we need to implement, and we need to trial and error, for sure. That's a part of life. So we need to be pragmatic here as well. But it shouldn't, take us away from the attempt to implement these new principles. Or they are not new either. It's more that we have forgotten them. So ingenious people, they have always lived that way. It's
exactly. So I was just checking, actually, and we have two interesting questions. So I would like to bring them in the front. So this is like, I would love you to hear your answer about that. So what other tool is there to use if not rational mind?
Sorry, once more. You say what
other tool is there to use if not rational mind?
No, I don't. I think my first, reaction on that is that we need to combine, that is the new synergy that is between the emotional intelligence and the intellectual intelligence, the IQ and the EQ. So when we get those together, and this is also a part of very interesting discussion in itself, because it's, traditionally at least, it's represented by the feminine and masculine way of thinking. So this is not about avoiding one way of thinking or intelligence. No, it's not. It is more to understand the synergy and interconnectivity, interdependence between the rational mind and the intuitive mind. And, it's conferred to Einstein when he said that, we have made the rational mind as the servant on the rational mind. It should be the other way around. It is, when we have use our intuition, we use our emotional imagination, and then we decide, okay, this is what I really want to create. This is what I imagine and envision. And then we use our rational mind and, so to say, masculine manifesting energy in order to make it happen. So it's not to take out the rational mind. It's more that we have cultivated the rational mind in a way that excludes the emotional and intuitive.
Yeah, exactly. And the second question was like, what exactly is global renaissance? Please explain. So I would like to hear a little bit more about your project.
Okay, the easiest way to explain it is that I wanted to create, and we wanted to create, a business model, a purpose-driven business, and as a driving force in future community building. So what I say is that, okay, how do we create a role model for future life and business? How do we create a role model for future life and business? And from a green perspective, and from this ecosystem thinking.
And where have you been basing your work in global renaissance? Was it really in the ideas of the initial, I don't know how to call it, like the initial renaissance? So are you?
I think more that, it was more like an intuitive, acknowledgement of that we are living in a time. This is a big shift, and it's very similar to the first Renaissance. Turbulence, a lot of things happened. It was a lot of wars between the cities in Italy and in Europe. It was chaotic, and it was. The time was in to create something new. You had the Middle Age and the way of thinking that was very collective. Everything was the church as the authority, and then people they woke up to a new reality. Said, okay, is this true? So they created a new mindset, a new worldview, and that changed and turned the whole Western world upside down. And said, okay, we are living in a similar time. We need a new mindset. And what you mentioned now as one of the questions is that, the new Renaissance is about how do we reconnect the intuitive and the rational mind. That is a part of the new Renaissance. How do we really create a synergy again, and in community building, in how we run our business, how we even look at our relationships, how do we live together? From
Exactly.
the romantic level to the community level,
To everything, like literally, even like how we even treat ourselves, like to start with, like literally from really the bottom line, what we eat, what we breathe, how we breathe, that we don't even know how to breathe. Like, which is the most unconscious thing. We don't even know how to do that properly.
So when you also talk about JRS, it's just like a platform. So what I want is to explore this new consciousness, the shift, the principles and values, and how to implement them in a practical way. So it is a playground. I want to have it a playground. So now we are working with gaming and gamification universe, and how can we use technology in order to create this future civilization? How do we create the new education? Because we need a new education, because the education we have now is not fitted, it's not oriented towards these new skills and competencies we need. So education is a part of it, and then you have, of course, the business units. How do we work together? How do we create a self-organizing business community? What kind of people do we need in order to create executive teams working together, interdisciplinary? So all these principles and values have to be built into a community like this.
And the only way to know is actually to try. That's the thing. Like,
That's
trial
it.
and error always.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So and what I see then, as the vision, because it started, that I really saw, intuitively, a global revival. It was a global awakening, and that if we really want to build down the thresholds and the separation and the division, then we have to create new networks, new kinds of collaboration on a global level, because now it's the competition is separating us instead of binding us together. And in our work now, we say that, okay, what is the highest value for humanity in these times? That is unity. And what is the strategy that is bridging? We need to learn, how do we bridge people and units that are separated and diverted.
And that would be actually part of, like, one of the, I think that this will be one of the trickiest part of the project, actually, not to create your small bubble, but actually how to connect this bubble to the other bubbles.
Yeah,
exactly. This is all like, how do you create common agreements, but without needing to getting into the game of changing the others to be identical to yourself. Like, we don't need to be identical. We just need to be in agreement.
So this is the opposite. It's to unleash, as we say, unleash the inner creative genius in every individual, and then to put them together in the collective. So I use the term, a collective individualist. It's you are an individualist, but you know your place and position in the whole. So you serve the whole. You are not thinking just out from your own career, your own egoistic, needs and desires, but you start to ask, okay, what is my passion and purpose in order to serve community? And now also in this context, humanity even, because we shrink more and more, the global village. So how do I serve, or the greatest or the biggest question here is, how can I be of the best service to humanity? How can I be of the greatest service to humanity? That is what we should ask ourselves. And I said, okay, how do we do that on a practical level? And that is my question now in order to create the global Renaissance society. How do we do this? How do we do it on a practical level? Okay, I see that I have to leave.
Like, literally, like, our invitation is practically for everybody who feels that there is the need for something to be created to come and prototype with us, and then see how we spread that. Like, this is really the call right now. Everybody who's joining the first one is literally on this stage. So that all of them have realized the needs. All of them have realized that they have a part of the project. Like, they really hold a key, like each person that they're coming, they're holding a key. And it's just how we create all of that together. I mean, that's as simple as and as difficult as that.
Maybe it's simpler than we imagine and think, because because now it seems complex, because we are not used to think or to go into this new paradigm. That is why we now talk about how do we set the new standard, how do we set the new normal, and then we have to imagine and to start to discuss what are the values and principles, as we discussed previously.
By the time intentions align, it becomes really easy, actually.
Yes, that's what I mean. But we need to start out, and it's always like that. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are a pioneer, you don't have the answers, but we have to follow this path. It's like you are on a track and you don't know where it is leading. And you said, "Oh, can people ask, where are you going?" "I don't know." And I said, "Are you crazy? You don't know. you know, because we are so used to you know, to fulfill all other people's expectations. Don't you really know what you are going to? I said, no. And
I mean,
that is,
you know,
the challenge
you
we
don't
have.
need to know. You just need to feel that you're on the right track, and you just need to continue growing. I mean, in the end, you cannot really know because you don't have. I mean, you have to evolve your consciousness and your brain also to be
Yeah.
able to see further.
Yeah,
You
yeah, of
cannot
course.
see that far
No,
yet.
no.
It's impossible.
So that is what I also, but now I'm having to leave you now soon. But you know, I think this understanding that we are in the transition, we are not totally in the past, and we are not fully into the future yet.
Yeah.
So that's why I call people I want to recruit into GRS as shift workers. We are bridging, you know, we are shift workers. And that means that we need to understand both the old and the new, and then to pedagogically, so to say, understand, okay, how do we guide people over the bridge from the one side
that's the point.
to the other?
Because it's still like there's still old fears that are coming up, and there's still new ideas that are coming up, but they two have to kind of make sense to be able to create this.
True. Okay, I'm sorry. I have someone.
Don't be. I also have to go for dinner.
So I hope, you know, we can follow up. I love talking with you.
Thank you so much, and really the invitation is open, and let's keep it for the next call.
We have many things in common for sure, you know.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a beautiful evening.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye bye.